Hi, everybody, and welcome to EDC 516, Teaching Dual Language and English as a Second Language. My name is Dr. Laura Hamman-Ortiz, and I will be your professor for this course. I wanted to take a moment now to tell you a little bit about myself and also give you a brief overview of what you'll be engaging with in this course this semester. I am an assistant professor in TESOL and bilingual education in the School of Education at URI, and I'm also a new faculty member. I previously was working at the University of Northern Colorado and the University of Colorado at Boulder before that. So I've been living in Colorado for several years now and have just made my way to the East Coast, and I'm excited to learn more about Rhode Island and the context for education here, and also to share some of what I've learned over the years with all of you. And so I think I'll begin by sharing my screen so that I can share a few slides that I've put together to introduce myself. So I like to begin my courses by telling my students why I do what I do, why I became a professor of education focused on ESL and bilingual ed specifically. And it really, for me, begins with my first year in the classroom. I'm originally from the Chicagoland area, but my first year teaching, I went to San Antonio, Texas, because I was excited to be able to work in an environment where I could put my Spanish to use. I studied Spanish all through school and through undergrad as well, and I was excited to be in a context where I could work with Latinx students who spoke Spanish and were learning English as a new language. And what I quickly learned in my first year of teaching, as all first-year teachers learn, I'm sure, was that there was so much more that I needed to know about how to effectively support students who are learning English as a new language. So one big takeaway I had was that when I was working with students who were newcomers from or students who had newly arrived from Mexico, I didn't have all of the knowledge and the strategies that I needed to be able to effectively support those students in learning not only English, but also the grade level content. And the second reason that I start with this moment when I'm thinking about my professional trajectory is because it really was one of the first times that I started to think critically about language and power. Like I mentioned, studied Spanish all through school. It was something that I was really proud of, that I had worked really hard to become bilingual. And in my classroom and in the context where I was teaching, so many of my students had parents who were bilingual, but they themselves were not, because their parents had decided that they didn't want their children to struggle in school the way that they had struggled as bilingual learners themselves. And so they were only teaching their children English at home so that they could be more successful in school. And it broke my heart to see the way that that students were not being provided access to their home language because of these real pressures that parents felt for their students to be successful in English, because of the hierarchy of languages that exist in the United States, where English is clearly the dominant language, and so often those who bring other languages into classroom spaces are seen as deficient if they are not yet proficient in English, even if they speak one, two, or more other languages. So it was the first time I really started to think about how my bilingualism was often treated as something wonderful, whereas the bilingualism of students who were still acquiring English was seen as a problem and something that had to be eradicated. And so it was with these thoughts percolating in my mind that I then, after teaching in Texas for a few years, went back to school and got my certification in teaching English as a new language at the University of Notre Dame. And then from there, went to Santiago, Chile, and began working with entire classes of second language learners as I became an English as a foreign language teacher, and first teaching second grade and then teaching at a school that was an English immersion school, teaching high school, 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, which was more of like traditional high school English classes. And so there I got to see firsthand how powerful it could be to teach in a bilingual setting, teach in an environment where English was the medium of instruction in a country where Spanish was the dominant language. And my students were becoming fully bilingual and biliterate in really beautiful ways. And I could see how powerful it was to not just have another language be an add-on, but really be integrated into your schooling experience. So after Chile, I came back to Chicago, back home, and taught for another year at a high school in downtown Chicago that served a largely minoritized population, mostly Black and Brown students. And again, I encountered kind of this misunderstanding of what it means to support emergent bilingual students or to teach language learners and the specific needs that those students have. There wasn't an ESL specialist at the school or anyone who'd been trained in supporting English as a new language, apart from myself. And they did have somebody who had a special education training, and she was the one who's also responsible for ESL. So there's this conflation of special education and ESL, which we know is not the same thing, that learning a new language is not the same thing as having a learning disability. And so again, I felt that energy of wanting to understand more deeply what was happening and also be able to do something about it. And so that's what brought me to graduate school. Yet again, I was at the University of Wisconsin, and I pursued my doctorate there, focusing on asking questions around language and ideology, asking questions about how to support and promote effective bilingual programs that were also equity oriented. And that's work that I've continued to this day. From Wisconsin, I moved to Colorado, where I was first at the University of Colorado Boulder and then at the University of Northern Colorado. And I engaged in research looking at bilingual writing development, looking at how to effectively support teachers of emergent bilingual students or of multilingual learners. And so I've become more interested in recent years in teacher education. And throughout my time at Wisconsin and Colorado, I've been teaching undergraduate and graduate courses, oftentimes courses just like this one, methods courses, because I really do believe that all teachers need and should have access to this knowledge and these skills to be able to support emergent bilingual students, or to be able to support students who are learning English as a new language at school. And it is from there that I come to you. And so, as I mentioned, it's my first semester here at the University of Rhode Island, our first year here, and I'm really excited to get to know you and to learn more about your teaching context. So that's who I am professionally and as an educator. But just to give you a bit of a broader picture of who I am. So I'm a new URI professor. As I mentioned, I'm a former K-12 educator, and I've been a teacher educator now for about 10 years. But I'm also an educational linguist. I'm someone who studies language and how language is learned in classrooms, especially in elementary classrooms. And so that's who I am as a researcher. I am a bilingual education advocate. I believe strongly that all students should be able to access bilingual education, especially minoritized students. And so I work really hard to promote bilingual education. I'm a mother. I have 2 daughters. You can see in this picture here, Mia, who's a year and a half, and Sophia, who's 3.5. And they keep my partner, Mike, and I very busy all the time. So if I ever seem sleep deprived in any videos, it's probably one of their faults. And I also, in my free time, love to run, and I travel as much as I can. It's harder now with kids, but here you can see a picture of the last marathon I ran in Denver before we left Colorado. And the last trip that I went on was my trip from Colorado here. This is a picture of us at Niagara Falls over the summer. And here's a picture of one of my former classes of students when I was at the University of Northern Colorado. All right. So with that, you have a little bit more information of who I am and why I'm committed to this work. I want to just give you a really brief overview of the course. You'll have a deeper dive into the syllabus as we progress through these modules. But just to tell you a little bit about the course. This is the course description that's in your syllabus. And it says that the course introduces methods and materials for current or future teachers of multilingual learners. So it's really a methods-oriented course. It's grounded in second language acquisition theory and research, and seeks to provide you with the opportunity to explore, develop, and apply teaching strategies that support bilingual and multilingual students. So that first part is important. This is a methods course, but I also think it's important that as educators or future educators or people interested in education, that you do have an understanding of the theory and the research behind the methods. And so while you have likely taken courses where you've gotten you've deepened your knowledge around second language acquisition theory and research, we are going to have some review in this course as well, so that you can make those connections between why we would do a particular practice in the classroom and what we know from research and theory about language learning. And it is an online asynchronous course, so I won't be able to see you in person applying these strategies, but you are going to be working to create a unit plan throughout the course, and engaging in professional development activities where you will be developing and applying some of the work that or some of the content that you're learning in this course. And then, as it says here, during the course, you will learn how to design instruction that aligns with TESOL and WIDA standards. We'll talk about both of those, and you'll complete a field experience through an advocacy-oriented professional development project, which we'll also discuss. So this is kind of the overview of what we're doing in this course. But beyond methods, I think I just want to bring us back for a moment to the deeper reason of why I think a course like this is so important. So of course, I want you to come away from this course feeling like you've learned some strategies and methods, approaches for supporting emergent bilingual students. But also I want you to come away with a deeper understanding of why this matters, that we're not just learning how to use sentence frames and incorporate more visuals into our classroom so that we have extra ways of, showing that we're supporting students in the classroom. It really is about seeing our students from a more humanizing perspective, not seeing our students in terms of what they lack, but seeing our students from an asset-oriented perspective that sees everything that they bring to the classroom, and also recognizing that there are so many important issues that are still that we still need to fight for as educators. I mean, I firmly believe that educators are also advocates. They are on the front lines of supporting minoritized students, and it's important that we think about that when we're planning our instruction and when we're thinking about how we want to organize our classroom and create groupings, and we're deciding what we're going to teach and how we're going to teach it and how we're engaging with families. And so these are just a few images that capture some of what I think are important happenings in our world today. And I just think as we continue in this course, we'll talk about this, especially when we get to our week on culturally and linguistically responsive teaching, and in our first week together, where we talk about how we think about who English learners are. But I want you to keep this in mind, that it's not just about strategies and teaching materials. It's more deeply about honoring who our students are, and fighting for their rights, recognizing that there are many fights left to be fought, that we really help our students see that we are there to support them, and that we want to learn from them and about them so that we can be advocates for them. And one other thing that you'll often hear me say in this course, and that I hope everybody comes away believing, is that all teachers are language teachers. I firmly believe that even if you teach high school math or you teach kindergarten, you are a language teacher, because everything in school is taught through the medium of language. And so I believe that all teachers become better teachers when they take coursework focused on ESL and bilingual education, because you start to see the language in your instruction differently, or more intentionally, which helps you be a better teacher for your emergent bilingual students, but also I think helps you to be a better teacher in general. So that is one of our big takeaways for this course, is that all teachers are language teachers. And then I also wanted to take a moment to let you know what the main assignments are in this course, just so you can keep them in your mind as you begin engaging with the coursework. So on the left-hand column here, you see some of the smaller assignments or things that you'll be engaging with on a more regular basis, at least for the top two. Readings and viewings you'll have every week, and that is how you'll get most of the content for the course, since we don't have in-class meetings. So do make sure that you do the readings and that you watch any of the videos that are uploaded. And second, we'll have, as I mentioned, or as you'll see later, weekly discussion forums where you engage with one another and share your thoughts and perspectives on the readings and viewings. You'll have two praxis quizzes. Those are somewhat short. They're just, I think, 10 questions each or 15 questions each. And you can take them as many times as you want. So they're not designed to be gotcha quizzes. They're designed to support you to be able to take the praxis test, which you'll be doing shortly after this course. So you'll have two of those throughout the course, and I'll give you more information about those when we get to them. On the right-hand side here, you see the big assignments in the course. And all three of these are things that you'll be working on throughout the course. They'll be introduced in more detail at the beginning of the class, and then you'll be slowly working on them, and they'll be due in the last 3 weeks of the semester. The first is the school or district-based problem paper. So if you are in the TESOL MA program or certification program, you already took 501. In 501, you started your paper, and now you're coming into the second part of this paper, which is when you carry out the research or the implementation of how you're going to address the problem that you identified. And so I'll give you some nuanced difference. If you're a master's student versus a certificate student, you have a slightly different lens on what you're doing, but that is the paper. It's the continuation of the paper you started in 501. The advocacy research paper is for those of you who are not in the MA program or the certificate program, and who have not taken 501. You have a different focus for your paper, which is researching some issue related to supporting emergent bilingual students that you would want to advocate for, some issue that matters for emergent bilingual students. So we'll talk more about this in the coming weeks. The professional development project is when you'll be developing a professional development workshop that you can deliver to a meaningful or authentic audience, your colleagues. If you're at a school, it could be other teachers, it could be your administrator. If you're a pre-service teacher, you might deliver the PD to another course. If you are depending on the role you're in, you might choose a different audience, but the idea is that you're choosing a topic related to TESOL or related to bilingual education, something you've learned in this course or something you've learned in this program, and you're teaching somebody else about it. I do have an option for if you're not a teacher, or if you are a pre-service teacher but can't find a way where you could deliver a PD to a meaningful audience. I have some alternative options, such as creating a podcast, a webinar, a website that students have done in the past that you could do instead, and I'll give some more information about that. And finally, the culturally and linguistically responsive unit plan is something you'll work on again throughout the whole course, but you'll be developing a unit plan that is specifically centered around the needs of emergent bilingual students, or the needs of multilingual learners. And so as we move through the course, at different weeks, you'll have a different topical focus, and you'll be applying that lens or that focus to work on different parts of your unit plan as we go. And as a reminder, our course text is called Scaffolding Language, Scaffolding Learning. It's written by Pauline Gibbons. We will start using it, not in the first or second week, I don't think, but later in the course, we will use it. So do make sure you buy it as soon as you can. And you'll have other supplemental readings and viewings on Brightspace, but we will be using the text, especially once we get into the methods, to work through the content around the different language domains. All right, so that is it. Here's my contact information if you need to reach me. My office hours are Thursdays from 3:30 to 4:30, and I encourage you to come, even if you don't have a question, just to say hi and so we can get to know each other. But you're welcome to pop in. And if you do have specific questions, obviously, you're welcome to come then, or you can always send me an email or schedule a separate time to meet. There's a way to message me through Brightspace as well, which I think is a more efficient way to contact me, because then it'll let me know that the message is coming from my course. And I will show you how to do that in another video. So thank you again and for your attention, and welcome to EDC 516. I'm looking forward to getting to know you all.